All right, in this video we're going to talk about how to keep track of offenses by students within Destiny for anything that we would take in that may be considered damage or slight damage, or simply tracking or giving documentation on replacement of chargers, for example. How do we document that? So I'm going to use the high school as my example here this morning, and you're going to begin by going into circulation, and for example we'll look at chargers here this morning. So what we would do is we would look up a student, say that student brought in a charger and they're replacing something that they have damaged, or we know that this student has a track record of being rough with their equipment. So if we need to document that, we need to enter some notes. And I'm going to use Christian here as an example. He came in this morning. His grandfather brought in a replacement charger for something that he had damaged last year. So he has a charger checked out to him currently. But if we scroll down further, we can simply add a patron note down here at the bottom. Once again, we're looking at the patron status screen under circulation. So we're going to add a patron level note, and so I would enter that note in. I'd put today's date, just like you would do if there's some kind of damage. You can choose to display this note all the time when you would bring that student up in any kind of circulation scenario, be it a checkout or checkout assets, either one. So going back to patron status once again, I would enter that note, put in any kind of documentation that you need. For example, here's a note from 2011 that he picked the key off the computer and it was repaired. So that's not something that we would bill for, but that might be something we want to document for, or we feel that we need to document. So this is kind of a catch-all for all those loose ends. So as I enter that note, if I feel that it's necessary for that to show up all the time, if you check that box display whenever the patron's information is accessed, anytime that I go to checkout, it's going to show up at the top. Of course, it's not doing that for my demo right now. Let me reset it. Now it shows up at the top. I just had to reset that. So those are some ways that you can document those kind of loose ends, or how many times this has happened for a particular student. So going back, if we need to provide documentation on one of those notes, so for example, Christian's grandfather came in and brought this charger, and he wanted some kind of receipt saying that he had met his obligation, he had paid his fine, he had brought in a replacement, and so forth. We don't have an icon on here to print, but what I would encourage you to do is to simply print that page, and once this page is printed, and you can have all of that in there, I would go in and I would sign this and I would date it. And then I would take this and scan this to whoever may need that documentation. Could be the treasurer, could be the building principal. I would scan it to yourself for sure. And then the actual hard copy that you signed and you dated, that goes to the individual student or to the parent that's standing there in front of you. So it may be a hassle where you need to go to the office at that moment, or go to a machine, a Savin, where you can do the scanning process, but at least you'll have the documentation and they get a receipt for it. So that's my suggestion on how to handle procedurally doing documentation. But once again, in review, we're going to circulation, patron status, and we are going down to the bottom and we're adding a patron note. A patron note at the bottom.